So we're going to talk about the immune system and kind of look at some of the root causes. And when you look at health, the first 20 years of my career in healthcare, we looked at signs and symptoms, identifying signs and symptoms, and then treating signs and symptoms and masking signs and symptoms. An example, let's say that I'm rubbing my arm with sandpaper, and you come put some medicine on it. And then I go and I'll let you put the medicine on it, and then you leave, and I go rubbing it again with sandpaper. And then you come and put some medicine on it, and then I go to rub. Is it going to heal? No. It's not going to heal until you stop the cause. And so that's what I try to look at now as I look at health issues. And people call me, they come to see me, and they just want a quick fix. Just tell me what I need to do, and they don't want to hear all the stuff that could cause it and what all they need to change. They just want to fix it and go on. And they know there's challenges with the pharmaceuticals. There's side effects, there's cost, and so they're looking for a healthier pill. And I'm trying to make up for what I did for 20 years, and now trying to look at what root cause is. And so as we look at the immune system tonight, we'll look at some of the things that you can do to boost the immune system and to help address it. But let's look at some things that can take it down. We're going to look at optimal immunity, how to achieve it. We're going to look at what is the immune system, things not to do, things to do, and some things that you can take. So what is the immune system? The immune system distinguishes between self and non-self and eliminates potentially harmful unself molecules in cells from the body. The immune system also has the capacity to recognize and destroy abnormal cells that derive from host tissues. Any molecule capable of being recognized by the immune system is considered an antigen. Now, what I want to do tonight is take a look at the immune system. And I grew up on a dairy farm, and so I look at horse sense. Y'all know what horse sense is? There's not much of it anymore. It's called common sense. And so just from a common sense standpoint, what do we do to build our immune system? And so that's what I'd like to do. Instead of getting into all the more technical stuff, let's just look at the horse sense. Things not to do. An example, heart disease, cancer, stroke, diabetes, and atherosclerosis. Now, what's atherosclerosis? No, it's clogged arteries. Arteriosclerosis is hardening of the arteries, and atherosclerosis is clogged arteries. That's when you build it up with plaque. And so as we look at heart disease, cancer, stroke, diabetes, and atherosclerosis, this is what the Surgeon General has to say. Dietary excess and imbalance causes much disease and death. Diet has a vital influence on health. 5 of the top 10 killers are directly related to diet. This includes heart disease, cancer, strokes, diabetes, and atherosclerosis. And I'm reading here straight from the United States Surgeon General. So we're looking at root cause. What are the causes as we look at these major health issues? And diet is the major issue here. It is clear that diet contributes in substantial ways to the development of these diseases, and that modification of the diet can contribute to their prevention and control. Now look at this here. It is clear that diet contributes in substantial ways to the development of these diseases. And what diseases were we talking about? Well, it may not want to do it here. Okay, heart disease, atherosclerosis, stroke, cancer, those kind of things. Okay, but here's what's interesting, that the modification of diet can contribute to their what? Prevention and control. We can actually see a reversal of those diseases by addressing what the fuel is. When we look at health, who works in finances? Anybody work in finances? When you look at finances, the bottom line, you put two lines underneath. That means bottom line. The bottom line to health is what's in the blood and the flow of the blood. The blood has to have certain nutrients in it to make our bodies run. But is there bad things that can mess with the blood that makes the cells not run well? What's some examples that gets in our blood? Medication. Alcohol. Cholesterol. Sugar. Parasites. Yes. So there's things that, tobacco. So there's things that we can put in the blood that then causes the blood not to work well and the cell doesn't work right. Remember back in the 60s, I can remember in the 60s, Dad had specific gas stations that he would go to because he would say that gas station they're prone to have water in the gas. Do you remember that? I don't know if they did it here or not. And so if you had water in your fuel, did your engine run as well? No, it didn't. Well, the same thing's true to us. We need fuel, blood, that is super, super racing fuel. And we'll talk about that later. So how do we weaken our immune system? And there's three big ones. And they start with an S. Sugar? Salt. No. Yes? Sodium. No. No. Lack of sleep? That's one of them. Yes, sleep deprivation. And there's one more. Stress. Sugar, stress, and sleep deprivation will wipe out your immune system. Just a 12-ounce soft drink, according to Dr. Neil Nedley. Who's ever read Neil Nedley? His book, Proof Positive. Excellent book. I encourage it for your church library. Neil Nedley says that one 12-ounce soft drink, I don't care if it's Dr. Pepper, Coca-Cola, Mountain Dew, whatever, Sprite, it will wipe out your immune system 50% for up to 4 hours. Add a Snickers bar to that. Now I'm talking Snickers bar that we had when we were kids. That was this big, not the ones this big today. I went to a gas station last year trying to find a little Snickers bar for an illustration, and I couldn't find the little one. I went all over different gas stations. I couldn't find the little one. There are all these huge Snickers. Just a little Snickers bar, this size, plus a 12-ounce soft drink will lower the immune system to only 1/14. 1/14 for the next 4 hours. So 13 out of 14 white cells you just anesthetized. You put them to sleep for 4 hours. A milkshake, a piece of cheesecake, it'll wipe out your immune system somewhere between 92 and 93% for the next 4 hours. Now, Nedley also found that 1 minute of anger or 1 minute of major stress will wipe out your immune system significantly for 6 hours. Do you ever get stressed? You know, maybe when you go into Buffalo, someone pulls in front of you, or someone, calls you at work or something and hollers. A fella came in Thursday morning. I think we're like a month and a half difference in age. It's really interesting. We're a month and a half different in age, and we found out we grew up not far from each other. And he has major stress he owns his own business, and he just gets these phone calls that people just cussing him out, yelling at him. And he came in, he says, well, I am just over the top stressed. Wipes out your immune system for up to 6 hours. Sleep deprivation, according to Harvard University, will wipe out your immune system as much as stress. And as we look at sleep, how much sleep do we need? Well, we used to think sleep deprivation was less than 6 hours. Less than 6 hours. Then there's the Breslov-Belloc study, and that's a study of 6,900 people over a 15-year period, and it found that In the first 9 years, it found that if you had less than 7 hours sleep, it was sleep deprivation. But then they found, as they continued on, in the 15 years, that actually less than 8 hours was sleep deprivation. Yes?
Does it have to be continuous?
That's a real good question. There's 3 parts of sleep. One, how many hours do you get? How many hours are you getting? I gotta be careful speaking, and y'all understand me here. How many hours of sleep are you getting? So Harvard right now is saying less than 7.5 is sleep deprivation, but they're really flirting with 8 hours. Less than 8 hours is going to be sleep deprivation. But you're right, it's not just how many hours are you getting. How many of y'all know what the lymphatic system is? Lymphatic system is our sewer system all over the body. Now, when I went to school, we didn't think that there was a lymphatic system in the brain, but there is. And they found that the brain has a lymphatic system. It's called the lymphatic system, and it kicks on somewhere around 9 o'clock at night, and it does a deep clean until 10 o'clock, and then from 10 o'clock to midnight, it does a thorough clean and flushing your brain of toxins and waste. But you gotta be asleep. And we've known for years that your hours before midnight are worth twice the hours after your midnight. After midnight. I had a good friend, Dr. Walter Strachan, who's a psychiatrist at Loma Linda. Strachan went to bed between 4:30 and 5 at night, and he'd get up at 1 in the morning. And so he was getting his 8.5 hours sleep, but those hours before midnight, he was getting 7.5 hours before midnight. And so he was getting double the amount of effective sleep. But then we found it's not just how many hours of sleep you get, that you get the 7.5 or 8 hours sleep. It's not just that you get those hours before the midnight, but it's also what you said, is it interrupted sleep. What about us fellas that have prostate issues? Guys get prostate issues, and there's guys get up 7, 8 times a night or more. Or what about y'all ladies that you wake up at 1:30, 2 o'clock, and you're up for hours worrying about the kids or the grandkids, and you can't go back to sleep? You have something called Rem sleep. You have stages of sleep. And you want to be able to go plumb through those stages of sleep. And if you wake up and then go back to sleep, you're starting over again. And so we need that contiguous sleep where we're sleeping through the night. So with sleep, there's several things. You need that 8 hours of sleep. You need those hours before midnight, and you need contiguous sleep where you're not waking up. So fellas, or even ladies, what do you do if you're having problems with, you got to go up to the bathroom so much? Well, quit drinking around 5 o'clock at night as much water. Hope you know what I'm talking about. And then when you do drink water, you want to just sip on the water instead of drinking a bunch of water, because when you drink more than 3 to 4 ounces of water at a given time, it goes to free flow. So let's say I have a sponge and I pour water on it and the water runs out onto the table. But if I went and just poured a little bit every once in a while, I'm going to have saturation. Well, our bodies, there's a physicist. He was friends with Einstein. And he found that if we'll just take a sip of water about 4 times every half hour, it doesn't go into free flow, and we maintain it. Who's ever grown a garden? Anybody grown a garden? Okay, let's say that you've got a tomato plant you're growing, and you dump a 5-gallon bucket of water on it versus a little soaker hose. Which is going to water it the best? The 5 gallons of water are going to run off. So when we let's say that we forgot, oh no, I haven't drank, so we drink half a water bottle. It goes into free flow and we urinate it off. And what we need, about that much water, 3 to 4 times every half hour. And that will saturate us the best. And we'll have better sleep. So as we look at the big guys that take out the immune system, and that is sugar, stress, and sleep deprivation. Now, a good friend of my daughter's was here a few weeks ago. Anybody know her name? She came and had to take care of me. What happened was I went to ASI. And we were in Orlando. And I was doing everything right. I mean, I took my vitamin D goes all over the place, so I test it to see where it is. My vitamin D just 1 week earlier was 216. That's high. That's what you fight cancer with. I took Alimed. I was taking vitamin C. I was taking zinc. I was taking elderberry. I mean, I was doing good. And I'd been doing good all this time of COVID. I went to Orlando. Well, yes, there was a lot of COVID in Orlando at the time, but what did I do? I had a booth. And so I was up late each night. And then on the way back, one of the vehicles messed up, and we didn't get it home till after 4 o'clock in the morning. Got to bed about 5, got up at 7, went to work. So what did I have? Like asleep.
Before midnight.
Wednesday, I started having some symptoms, and I got COVID. And so there's two stories, two lessons to learn here. Is that, and I've been telling people for years, right here, but just knowing it, having the academia, you know what I mean by academia, the knowledge of, but if you don't put it in place, does the knowledge of keep me from getting COVID? No, I got to put it in, I got to practice it. And was it a good cause? It was a good cause. ASI we had a great ASI this year. It was a good cause, but what happened? You're just dealing with physiology. And though it's a good cause, if I jump off that ledge onto this floor, I'm going to hurt something. It's just physiology. So, number one, I got sick. I got COVID. I was out of work for 3.5 weeks. And I got plumb sick, real sick. So sick that brain-wise, I wasn't even thinking good to even hardly take care of myself because I was so sick. And so my daughter calls Brittany and had Brittany come over and gave me IV fluids. I didn't eat for 1.5 weeks, hardly drank anything for 1.5 weeks. I just shut down. And it's so easy for us to have knowledge of what we need to do. Would you agree? Whether it's physical or whether it is spiritual. But unless we put it into practice, it's not going to do any good. Having academia, both physically and spiritually, is not going to keep us safe. We've got to put it into practice. So, sugar. What's the next one? Stress. And the next one? Sleep deprivation. So let's look. Besides being a driver behind other chronic health conditions like diabetes and heart disease, sugar consumption affects one's body's ability to fight off viruses and other infections of the body. White blood cells, also known as killer cells, are highly affected by sugar consumption. Sugar hinders the immune system by not allowing the white blood cells to do their job and destroy bad bacteria or viruses, as well as when we do not eat sugar. So remember, when we eat that sugar, we put blinders on the white cells. We anesthetize them. The average American eats approximately 22 teaspoons of sugar every day, 150 pounds of sugar every year. Would you think of that? Isn't that amazing? That's a mess of sugar. And 79 pounds of high fructose corn syrup. High fructose corn syrup's in so much, from ketchup to sweet pickles. Even some bread has high fructose corn syrup. Soft drinks, so much has high fructose corn syrup in it. I won't go into all these. Let's look at sleep deprivation. Sleep provides essential support to the immune system. Getting sufficient hours of high quality sleep enables a well-balanced immune defense that features strong innate and adaptive immunity and less severe allergic reactions. stress. Many of today's illnesses and diseases are triggered by chronic stress, which depresses the immune system and wreaks havoc on every organ system in the body. And what's happening here is when we're stressed, we dump stuff. We dump B vitamins, we dump lithium, we dump magnesium. That's to help prevent us from being stressed the next time. But we also, it lowers the vitamin E, it dumps, it affects our vitamin C. And so when we're stressed, we don't have those nutrients that help to build our immune system. Exactly how stress causes and contributes to disease is a question of particular interest to researchers. There are two likely pathways. One is behavioral. People under stress sleep poorly, are less likely to exercise, they adapt poor eating habits, smoke more, and don't comply with medical treatment. Stress also triggers a response by the body's endocrine system, which release hormones that influence multiple other biological systems, including the immune system. And this is where Nedley talks about just 1 minute of anger blows the immune system for 6 hours. But Dr. Arvo Khanna, who is a neurologist, anybody know Arvo? He's a neurologist from Loma Linda. Arvo found that it's the same. Whether it's stress or anger, they both affect the brain the same way and lower the immune system. What are some stressors? Y'all have stress? What's some stressors? Finance? Health? Family? Maybe your neighbor? What are some other stresses? What? Being too busy, yeah. And it can be doing the good stuff. What about work? Can work be a stressor? It sure can. A poor diet, vitamin D deficiency, alcohol, obesity, smoking, dehydration, and this is an interesting one, internet addiction. So let's take a look here. A poor diet. Diets that are limited in variety and low in nutrients, such as consisting primarily of ultra-processed foods, can negatively affect a healthy immune system. It is also believed that a Western diet high in refined sugar, red meat, and low in fruits and vegetables can promote disturbances in a healthy intestinal microorganism, resulting in chronic inflammation of the gut and associated suppressed immunity. Who's ever heard of Cornell University? Yes, just down the road from here. Cornell University and Cambridge University found that the diet that we eat significantly affects our immune system. And the diet they found to be the most healthy for our immune system is what's called a whole food, plant-based diet with variety. What about Fruit Loops? Fruit Loops are plant-based. How about Oreos? Oreos are plant-based. I don't know about Twinkies. But are Oreos and Fruit Loops good for us? No, because they're processed. They're not whole food. But it's not just having a whole food plant-based diet that's important. You also want one that has variety. We're not dogs. We don't eat just same old, same old. And so we need a variety of food that has different nutrients in it. And so whole food means not processed. Whole foods. What's an example of whole foods? Beans? Fruit? Bananas? Oranges? I had some really good avocado tonight. And tomatoes.
And kale.
And kale? Yeah, kale. That's whole food. Pardon? Spinach. So fruits, vegetables that are in their natural state. Could be grains. that aren't refined. What's some examples of processed foods? Pardon? Lunch meats or luncheon stuff? Yes. Anything comes out of the box. And that's a good answer. When you go to the grocery store and you go down the middle aisle, that's mostly processed. If you hang out in the produce section, that's whole food. That's the healthiest place in the grocery store. Vitamin D deficiency. How do we increase our vitamin D? Sunlight, yes. So as the ultraviolet light hits the skin, it converts the cholesterol, which over 50% of your cholesterol is just under your skin. It converts that cholesterol into melon, into vitamin D. How else can we raise our vitamin D? Okay. That's right. Certain foods. It could be mushrooms. It could be sea vegetables. Different foods that have vitamin D. It could be supplementation that has vitamin D. Some folks say all you need is 1,000 of vitamin D a day, or 5,000. That's all you need. Well, I had a lady come in, and she was taking 5,000 IU's vitamin D a day, and her labs showed her vitamin D level was 12. Now that's low. Normal vitamin D runs between 30 and 100, and she was at 12, taking 5,000 a day. So I told her to do it. So she went to 10,000 a day, and she went to, I believe it was 17. So then we went to 20,000 twice a day. That's a total of 40,000 a day. And she went to 24. Still below 30. And that was 3 months in between each of those times. So it was plenty of time in between. And then I heard a study that not having enough magnesium can affect it. So I had her take magnesium. It went to 97. And so it's not just how much you take a day. It's really what is the blood level. The blood level is what is the important number, not how much we take. Deficiencies in vitamin D is associated with increased autoimmunity and an increased susceptibility of infection. How about alcohol? What's that do to our immune system? Pardon? Throws it out the window. Alcohol consumption, alcohol compromises the body's immune system and increases the risk of adverse health outcomes. When I go into the school system and I teach the kids, and I ask them about drinking, what does drinking do? Well, I'll tell you what it does. It makes mom and dad do stupid stuff. Is that true? It does. So alcohol, yes, we make decisions that aren't good. We choose food and other things that aren't good, but it also affects our immune system. Alcohol can trigger inflammation in the gut and destroy the microorganisms that live in the intestines and maintain immune system health. And did you know that the majority of our immune system is determined by the health of our colon? The majority of our immune system is determined by the health of our colon. There was a physician I was listening to one time. He was from Johns Hopkins, and he said our colon should be like the rainforest, where it just has all kinds of just the good bacteria. But what happens is when people eat processed foods, when people take antibiotics, it kills off that flora and it affects our immune system. Obesity. Obesity, like other states of malnutrition. Now, when you look at a person, I had a guy come in one time, he was 572 pounds. and he was malnourished. Now, how can a guy who's 572 pounds be malnourished? He's big, he's got plenty of fat. He was not consuming nutrition-dense food. When I work with folks and they're over 400 pounds, definitely over 450 pounds, I can pretty well tell you what that person eats. They're eating pizza, hot dogs, hamburgers, chips, soft drinks. That's pretty well what that person eats, or processed meats. It's not nutrition dense. And so these people who can be obese, can be malnourished. It's known to impair the immune system, altering leukocyte counts, as well as mediated immune system, mediated immune responses. How about tobacco smoking? Can that affect our immune system? It sure can. Smoking harms the immune system and can make the body less successful at fighting disease. Dehydration. Do we see a lot of dehydration today? There is. We do see people drinking more water today, it is true, than we did. Used to, a lot of folks mostly drink water, but we are seeing more people drink water today than we did in the 70s and 80s. But you want to drink water. Water is so important. Dehydration does affect the immune system. And I won't get into all the science here, but when a person is dehydrated, it affects how well our body can fight infection. Now this is an interesting one. Who's ever seen Scott Retzmuth? How do you like Scott Retzmuth's work? Scott does a great work, and he talks about media on the mind. He talks about the number one addiction in America, and that is gaming and internet, social media and that kind of thing. But as we look at internet addiction, and when you think of internet, you think of the computer, but is also the internet this? Absolutely. You know, as I was going through the airport today, it was just constantly this. You look at kids today, it's constantly this. As you look at the communication skills, they don't have that good communication skill because they type in like a couple word sentences. Have you ever seen people texting back and forth to each other and they're sitting beside each other? Yeah, that's just weird. We need that interpersonal skill to be able to talk back and forth. But what does internet do? Let's look at what the internet does. Internet addiction can damage immune function. People with excessive internet use have 30% more colds and flu symptoms than those with less problematic internet usage. Any idea why? It's stressful? Yes, absolutely. If a person is addicted to the internet, do you think they're out exercising? It's sedentary, yes. Are they taking time to eat good, healthy food? Probably not. They're probably eating something quick. Yeah. Do you think they're getting good sunshine? Probably not. Do you think they're getting good diaphragmatic breathing? Now, what's that youngin's name? Emma? Now, when Emma breathes and you lay her on her back, does her stomach go up and down? That's called diaphragmatic breathing. But as we get older, we start breathing like chihuahuas. Just a little bit. But we need diaphragmatic breathing like a baby does. If you took voice or if you took wind instruments, they taught us to breathe with diaphragmatic breathing. Do you think that person who's interneting or whatever, they're not taking time with exercise to have that good diaphragmatic breathing? They're breathing like chihuahuas. And so that affects their health. Do you think they're maybe more prone to drink stuff to keep them awake at night instead of drinking water? Maybe some more prone to maybe use tobacco, maybe more prone to use alcohol. Yes. When we look at gaming is a huge addiction out there. It's very huge. And there are people who they're all night long. I remember several years ago, I was flying from Tennessee over to the West Coast, and I was sitting there, and there's a fellow who had a computer like mine. He was in his mid-40s, and he was sitting one row on the inside aisle. I was on the inside aisle here. He was across from me. It's like where you're sitting. He was sitting here. I was sitting there. He was sitting here. And I watched him that whole flight across the United States, and he was bouncing in his seat like a child, like a 6-year-old playing a game. And what was he doing? He was killing people. He was cutting them with knives and shooting them. And is that healthy here? Is it healthy to be addicted to like that? Because you're probably not going to get the exercise. You're not going to be getting the good nutrition. You're not going to be getting those laws of health that you need to have a good immune system. Greater sleep deprivation, worse eating habits, less healthy diet, more prone to smoke, more prone to use alcohol. So the things not to do for the immune system: sugar, sleep deprivation, stress, a poor diet, vitamin D deficiency, alcohol, obesity, smoking, dehydration, internet addiction. Those are just some things that research finds that lowers our immune system. What things to do? The most important thing, I believe, is prayer. Would you agree? The most important thing is a relationship with Christ. There is so much stress out there today. And as we look at the stress we have today, it's nothing compared to where we're going. The only way we can survive where we're going is a relationship with Christ. The function of our brain significantly affects how well our immune system works. And I encourage you to read those two chapters. We won't take time tonight. Psalms 91 and Psalms 103. What does the WHO say? Wash your hands regularly, soap and water, alcohol rub, if not visibly dirty. What's interesting is we look at pathogens. We've heard about washing hands all this year, or last year and a half, and it's true. Wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. And that's what I tell my staff. When they got to work, wash your hands. Before you saw a patient, wash your hands. After you saw a patient, wash your hands. If you're giving a patient eye drops, you put eye drops in the right eye, wash your hands before it, wash your hands again before you put it in the left eye. Before you eat, after you eat, before you smoke, after you smoke, before you go to the bathroom, after you go to the bathroom. I mean, we had our folks washing their hands. And this has been, 30, 40 years ago. And so it is true, hand washing is important. But some pathogens are killed by soap and water, better. And some pathogens are killed by alcohol, better. And so using both can be beneficial. But one of the problems we're now learning today is that we can actually kill too much. And now we don't have good bacteria in the gut. We're having some problems. So we got to look at where we need to be there. Yes?
What about UV light?
Okay.
I've seen them in the hand dryers and everything.
UV does kill. It sure does. We use UV in water purification. God uses it in the sunshine. Hey, ladies, how many of y'all ladies have ever hung your clothes out on the clothesline? It's killing the germs. It is. I had a scientist. I used to live next door to a scientist. He had his doctorate in oceanography or something. He was a brain, and he said he was telling me about a study that just having instruments, medical instruments, out in the sunshine was highly effective on cleaning those instruments, if they were clean to start with, but killing any pathogens. They said practice respiratory hygiene, cover your nose and mouth when coughing, throw tissue into a closed bin, and then wash your hands. When we were kids, what did Granddaddy have and Grandmother have? And so what they do, they go rub this snotty nose, and then they'd rub this snotty nose, and they rub their own snotty nose. And what's that doing? It's passing it around. Yeah, them handkerchiefs ain't no good. You can use a Kleenex, throw it away between people, and then wash your hands afterwards. Maintain social distancing. Actually, prior to COVID, WHO only said 3 feet. And then once COVID came around, several months into COVID, they moved it to 6 feet. But it was actually only 3 feet when COVID first came out. Avoid touching your eyes, mouth, and nose. Why is that? Pardon?
Our hands are usually filthy from touching things all day.
Okay, but why don't touch your nose, mouth, and eyes?
That's where those germs are going to go into.
It's a hole in your head. And it's how germs can get in there. And so you just open the door to let them in. And so you want to be careful. And look how often we touch our mouth, we touch our nose, we touch our face, we touch our eyes a lot. And that's actually one of the problems that I've seen with masks, is where people just keep going up touching them because they bother them. Now this is interesting. This is what WHO said as we came into COVID. It changed, but this is what they said at the beginning part. Mask and personal protective equipment if you're sick, when caring for someone else who is sick in a healthcare setting. That was WHO's recommendation. And then it was changed. But that was the top science back March of last year. If you're unwell, stay home. If you have a fever, cough, or difficulty breathing, seek early medical care. I was flying somewhere, I don't know where, and I was sitting by a fellow from Sweden, and it got my interest because some of my family are from Sweden. And he told me that in Sweden, if you're sick, your employer does not want you to come to work. Don't come in and get everybody else sick. The employees don't want you coming into work and getting them sick. So stay home till you're well. Here in America, we just want to get the widgets made, and so I don't care what you're like, get in here and make the widgets. I think the Swedes are smart though. A healthy diet. A balanced diet consisting of a range of vitamins and minerals most effectively primes the body to fight infection and disease. Now, Walt, that's too simple. Is that too simple? Is that how God made it? Pretty simple. He made it simple so we can do it. I mean, that's just pretty simple. A balanced diet consisting of a range of vitamins and minerals most effectively primes the body to fight infection and disease. Now, is this a little community college? Who is it says this? Harvard. This is what Harvard University says. And so God has given us whole foods, plant-based, with variety, and eating those builds our immune system. It gives us the fuel that we need to run the body. Which would you rather have? Would you rather have that or prescriptions? Unfortunately, I have people who come in that do not want this. I have people who come in. I had a man come in 3 weeks ago. He sat down, he had diabetes. Now, diabetes is easy to reverse. It is. Diabetes, we see over a 98% reversal rate of type 2 diabetes. It's easier to reverse type 2 diabetes than toenail fungus. It is. And so as I was sitting with a fella, I asked him what he eats. And I said, is there any way you could stick some fruit in there? I don't do fruit. Can you imagine? A person who doesn't like mangoes, a person who doesn't like grapes, a person who doesn't like strawberries, bananas, none, no fruit at all. And he says, and I said, well, what about? He said, I don't do vegetables either. He didn't do vegetables. He did beans and potatoes. That was it. No other vegetables. So for you and I, that would be easy. But there are people out there who just don't do it. Why don't they do it? Pardon?
They're addicted to the other food.
That's exactly right. They're addicted to other food. I grew up a little different maybe, but I had parents come in and say, my 5-year-old just won't eat right. There's nothing I can do. Yes, there are. You're their parent. You're the one who's buying the food, putting it in the house. They're your child. Make them eat good food. Well, they won't eat it. They'll get hungry. They'll get hungry. I remember when I was a kid, my dad, we had a dachshund, and she loved to beg for food, and I'd slip her some food, and Dad he said, boy, we don't have the money to feed that dog off the table. That dog's got its own food, but we don't have the money to give it our food. I said, but she won't eat it. He goes, she ain't hungry. You don't give her food off the table, she'll eat. And he was right. I went to a seminar out in California a number of years ago, and there's a physician, he was talking about nutrition, and I don't agree with this guy. He ate really healthy food, but where I didn't agree with him was if there was any leftover, he threw it in the trash. No, you can eat it. You can put it in the freezer and eat it later. But his mother-in-law come to live with him. She is from Europe. And that didn't go over too good, him throwing all that food away. Well, he had to live with his wife, and he had to live with his mother-in-law, and so he figured, okay, what can I do? What if I feed it to the dogs? And the lady goes, I don't care, just don't go throw it in the trash can. Dogs wouldn't eat the food. So he decided to have the dogs NPO for 3 days. Now what's NPO? Nothing by mouth. So what did he do? He fasted his dogs for 3 days. And he said them dogs had no problem eating that food after 3 days of fasting. You're right. Their tongues have been adulterated. I have people who tell me, I don't do water because it don't taste good, they say. Well, compared to what what they're stimulating, it's kind of like we're having problems in Sabbath school today, keeping children's attention. They're having problems in Sunday schools, keeping kids' attention, because these kids are so overstimulated by video games and this stuff that basic Sabbath school lesson isn't stimulating for them. Does that mean we need to start doing crazy stuff in Sabbath school and Sunday schools? Not at all. So the person who doesn't eat healthy, what do? Pray, it's the first thing. You're exactly right. Now, how many of y'all have lived in the South before? Any of y'all? Okay, we think different. So if you go to a fellow in the South and you tell him those biscuits and gravy are killing you, what are you telling him?
You're wrong.
What?
That he's wrong.
Okay? But more importantly, you're telling him that his wife and his mother and his grandmother are wrong and they're trying to kill him. And that don't set too good. So what do? you start saying, have you ever had a smoothie before? Man, smoothies are really good. You want to have one? And let them try a smoothie and change the tongue. Smoothies are good tasting. And slowly adding things onto the plate where the other stuff doesn't have room to get. So you've got to replace it with good stuff and figure out. When I go in the school system, I go in every month, and I'll be there next Tuesday when I get back. And I take food to these elementary school kids, actually I even go to high school kids, but K through 8, I'll be there next week. And I'm always taking something new. I remember I took a pineapple one day. And this little boy he ain't ever seen a pineapple before. And he wasn't going to eat that. That looked weird. And finally the teacher and I convinced him I cut it open, and he tasted some of that yellow stuff. He goes, wow, that's good. And so each month I try something a little different. I might take mango. Them kids up on the mountain never had mango. A lot of those kids have never had even avocado. Maybe in guacamole, but they just haven't had food like that. Yes, they've had a banana, but what they really go wild over is when I take them grapes, because their parents don't buy grapes. They've had them before, but they don't buy them because of the cost, and they just don't have the money. So you just have to slowly keep adding food in there that they'll like to change the taste of that tongue. Anybody eat a standard American diet and change over to a healthy diet? Has anybody ever done that? Did you have to retrain your tongue? Does the fake cheese taste the same as the other cheese? No. Does the milk taste the same as the other milk? But you know what? I like this stuff better now. It's good. And so so often we give up on people and we don't give them time to make those adjustments. Now, we'll talk tomorrow morning on why these adjustments are so important. And that is because they affect the brain. And the brain is the most important organ in the body. And we'll talk tomorrow why the brain is the most important organ in the body. We'll talk tomorrow about why Harvard University says processed food is difficult to get it out of the body, out of the brain. So what do we do? Yes, we look at diet. Yes, we look at helping them change. I have people come in, they say, I don't do water. Well, let's try this. Let's put it in a glass jar, in a mason jar, and put just, say, 2 drops of peppermint essential oil, or maybe a couple drops of orange essential oil, wild orange, or maybe a couple drops of lemon or lime or grapefruit. Now you can't do it in plastic because essential oil will dissolve plastic and you'll end up drinking plastic. But I'll try that, and they go, well, I can do that. Well, then let's do it. Or maybe even a tea, a chamomile tea, or some tea that's good tasting that they'll enjoy. Dandelion. Dandelion's really good for us. Nettle, really good for us. And start working that way, and put some stevia, not the white stuff, but get the herb, and put that herb in there and make it taste good. But one thing you always want to do is taste it before you have them do it. I had a doctor one time, he came up with these wild concoctions of herbs that made physiological sense, but they were nasty. And when the patient would taste one of them, they wouldn't eat nothing, drink no more tea. And so you want to make sure it's a good tasting one. Before you have them do it. So what are some things that we can do as we finish up tonight? What are some things that we can do to build our immune system? What are some things that we talked about already? Cut out sugar. Get your sleep. Take care of your stress. Now, can we plumb get rid of stress? We'll talk about that in the morning. We can't plumb get rid of it, but can we manage it? We can. What was it you said?
Before midnight, sleep.
Oh, sleeping before midnight, yes. What else can we do for the immune system? Get off the internet, yeah. What else? Exercise, yes. Sip our water. What? Get outside and get sunshine, fresh air, exercise, yes. Are there any type of supplementation that can help with our immune system? Vitamin D. Yes, vitamin D is really, really good. Pardon? Zinc is good. You got to be careful with zinc. Some people are out there taking 100, 200 milligrams a day. It's okay, but if you're taking high doses of zinc, you better take you some copper, because zinc depletes copper. If you take 50 milligrams of zinc, take maybe 3 milligrams of copper, because you don't want to deplete the copper. If you have a person who has high copper, you give them a bunch of zinc to get that copper level down. Yes, zinc's good for you. Vitamin D is good for you. What's another good supplement that's good to build the immune system? Magnesium. Yes, it is. Magnesium is good for you. Sure is. What else? What? Selenium. Oh yeah, selenium's really good. Selenium is a catalyst. Significantly lowers your risk of breast cancer and other types of cancers. Selenium is very, very important for thyroid function, but it's also good for our immune system.
Brazil nuts.
It's in Brazil nuts. It sure is. Yes. What about vitamin C? Vitamin C is real good for us. And you can take it to what's called bowel tolerance. Bowel tolerance. What's bowel tolerance? Yep, we call it green apple two-step. Y'all know what green apple two-step is? It's when you get the two-step of eating too many green apples. And so what happens is magnesium and vitamin C, too much, can give you a loose stool. So you take it to bowel tolerance. You don't want to have diarrhea. Anything else? What about turmeric? I was listening just this morning as I was driving to the airport, them talking about how turmeric was really, really good for the immune system. What about garlic? Garlic is super for the immune system. Onion's good for the immune system. Lemons are good for the immune system. Have we ever read that we should drink lemon juice every morning?
Yeah.
Sure have. Yeah. How about elderberries? Does elderberries grow here? Yeah, elderberries are very good for the immune system. What about NAC? NAC? Y'all have heard of NAC? We may see that going away because the big pharma is trying to take it away. It costs, it's right at 10 times more, over 10 times more if you buy it at the pharmacy versus at your health food store. What about quercetin? Have you heard of quercetin? Yeah, that can improve your immune system. Anything else?
Well, I heard you talk about allicin.
Allicin is the component in garlic. It takes 24 cloves of garlic to make 1 drop of allicin. We see allicin getting rid of MRSA. We've seen allicin get rid of vancomycin resistant MRSA. My son had Lyme disease, my youngest son, and for 11 years we tried to get rid of the Lyme disease. And when we used the allicin, it's now been gone 10 and a half years. No symptoms in 10 and a half years. It's the garlic.
Where do you get allicin?
You can get allicin. Talk to me later. There's different allicins out there. Some are better than others. So as we look at the supplementation to keep our immune system up, here's something we have to be careful. Again, look at what I did. My vitamin D was 216. That's too high. I was taking vitamin C. I was taking allicin. I was taking elderberry. I was taking zinc. My immune system was doing great. I had been battling. I work with a lot of people who come in sick, people with COVID. I go out and work with people who have COVID. I didn't get sick because I was taking care of myself. But let me just 1 week, let my barrier down and I wasn't eating sugar. I wasn't stressed. I was doing a good work. But it's physiology, y'all. It's just physiology. It's how the body's made. And so that one item took down all that other stuff that I had done. So it doesn't matter if you're taking zinc or the allicin or the elderberry or the vitamin D or whatever. If you go against and do those other items, it will undo everything that you were doing. And so that's what the biggest thing tonight is I want to share with y'all. Is yes, how does the body work? What do we need to do? What can we take to help us? But we've got to be consistent on doing those things we got to do. Or you have to call Brittany and Brittany come give you some IVs. Okay, any questions before we close tonight on the immune system?
How much time before we eat should we drink our last water?
Okay, you will hear between 15 minutes and 30 minutes, depending on the person. And then depending on the person is 1 hour to 2 hours afterwards. 2 hours, that's a long time. But let's look at the physiology. Depending on our age, that first part of digestion, if we're young, is 30 minutes. If we're a little older, like most of us in here, then it can take an hour or even longer, that first part of digestion, where pepsin and amylase and protease and lipase are doing their job in that first part of digestion. And then it then goes to the other part of the stomach where the hydrochloric acid starts breaking it down and other enzymes coming from the mucosa. An average meal can take 2.5 hours to digest. Put raw meat in there. Put chocolate in there. And you can extend it even much longer. So why don't we drink with the meals? Well, there's several reasons. One is because while the food's in the mouth and we're drinking, the more you drink, the less saliva you're going to make, and you need the saliva to have the digestive enzymes. You're also more prone when you're eating that good old Mater sandwich and you take a swig of water to swallow part of that sandwich that hasn't totally been chewed up yet and soaked up with the enzymes. But you dilute the hydrochloric acid. You also, if you drink a lot, you can actually push that chyme out of the stomach prematurely before it's totally ready to leave. I love Mexican food. And when we go out to eat, I would drink a whole pitcher, 2 pitchers of water while we were out. 2 pitchers. Well, what I found out is that's so much you can push the food prematurely out into the duodenum before it's completely ready. So if food on average stays in the stomach for about 2.5 hours, 2.5 hours, can you see why some doctors say don't drink for 2 hours? Most folks will say an hour. That's that first part for us that are in the age where we are.
So if you're drinking water, anything with your meal, you're not getting the nutrition. If there's any nutrition in the meal, you're not getting it.
Well, what's happening is when you're drinking with the meal, you can be diminishing your ability to break the food down from macronutrients to micronutrients is effective. Yes. And so what happens then when it leaves the stomach and goes into the small intestines and goes by the villi, which has these micro holes. Have y'all ever seen them grate apples? Pour apples out and it goes across a grater the little ones dropping the hole first, and the mediums and the big ones. Well, think of your villi in your small intestines like shag carpet, and it's like little vacuum cleaners. And you've got a blood vessel that runs like this, and you've got a lymphatic vessel right here, and it's like a wire. It's got a bunch of holes in it where it soaks up the food, which is called chyme. Well, if the food is too big to go into the holes, where does it go? Out the chute. That's right. And so we don't want that food not broke down. Now, there's another thing that causes that food not to break down. There was a nurse out in West Tennessee to make extra money. She'd draw labs, and she went to this group of people and drew their labs, and quite a few of them, their protein was too low in their blood. And as a good nurse, she asked them, "What do you eat for protein?" And they all said they had good protein that they ate on a regular basis. So she didn't know what to do to help them. So she went and got a doctor friend of hers, and he come to help this group of people. The whole group, most of the whole group was this situation. And so he starts studying and trying to figure out, why do these people have low protein when they say that they eat adequate protein? You know what the problem was? They were really conservative Christians. It was a church, and they were real conservative, and they worried about what they did and what you did and what you did and what you did and what you did, and that affects digestion. See, when we go into fight or flight, or when we're stressed, our body does not break the food down as effective from macronutrients to micronutrients. And so when we eat while stressed, we don't properly absorb those nutrients into our body. So yes, drinking with the meals can do it. Yes, eating when we're stressed can also do it. Any other questions? All right. Anything else you want to cover? All right. Well, y'all have a good evening, and we'll see y'all in the morning.
Thank you.
You're welcome.